Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Tatiana Show. It is April 13th, 2017. I'm broadcasting to you live from New Jersey, a wonderful place here in the United States, home of the free, or is it? Today, we have a really great guest coming on. But before we bring on Matt Phillips of the Free State Project, I wanted to talk a little bit about the event that I just went to. And actually, why don't we bring in Matt? And Matt, I'll talk to you about the event instead of randomly to my audience. So everybody, welcome Matt Phillips from the Free State Project.
Yay. Hi, Tatiana.
See, I'm putting in sound effects. We're upping the production value here at the Tatiana Show. So I was just at Harvard, and last week we had on Kevin McKernan, who works at this company called Cortigen. Do you know Kevin at all?
No, I don't.
So it was actually, they do genomics testing, and one of the things that they test is genomics for cannabis strains. And the conference was CanMed, and it was at Harvard University. So they had me perform, the Silk Road song and some other stuff, talk a little bit about Bitcoin. And I also went there with our mutually good friend, Lynn Ulbricht, who, of course, is always on the defense path of her son. And she was talking about, how the drug war affected her life and, how there's like a real human cost. But what I was really impressed with was how, I don't know, I just felt like I really learned a lot at this conference. I thought it was just going to be, some hippies saying, hey, you got to smoke more weed, it's good for you. But it was totally not like that. It was really professional. There were a lot of fantastic speakers with various degrees of technical things that they were talking about. And one of the things that I liked was this football player panel. And I don't like football. I don't play sports. But apparently in the football world and in general with a lot of the more violent sports, they suffer a lot of head trauma and a lot of physical damage. And especially in the football world, they're not allowed to treat themselves with cannabis, which protects them from dangerous brain injuries in some ways. It also relieves their pain, a whole slew of other kind of benefits. And instead, they're just given these opioids, and they all just become addicts, essentially. So it was, wild to see how much the state's involvement really prevented medical cannabis use. Even in terms of testing, there's only one place where you can get your strains from, and it's always the same strain. So with cannabis being a very diverse plant, that really limits the ability to be effective. Meanwhile, the same ABC agencies that are banning it from being done in the United States own patents on cannabis, or they send funding to, for example, Israel, where they have a really good program around medical cannabis. And it just, it was a real eye opener. It was almost like looking under a rock and finding a whole bunch more bugs and, radioactive material that needs to be cleaned out. Have you ever had anything like that over at PorcFest? I know that's coming up in New Hampshire. For people who don't know about PorcFest, we'll talk about that. But are you guys doing anything with medical cannabis this year, do you think?
I don't know off the top of my head if we have anything specifically scheduled, although we do have quite a few medical cannabis activists that are active in New Hampshire. And of course, we have DCRIM bill that's working its way through the legislature right now. Our new Republican governor, Chris Sununu, has promised to sign the DCRIM bill if it gets to his desk. And hopefully that will, at least for New Hampshire, allow us to join some of the other states. There's actually a full legalization bill that has been doing better than people even expected in New Hampshire. But the other thing I want to say about the industry in general is, I do some angel investing, and I've seen quite a few people that are, investing in one area of that industry or another, whether it's on the sort of, grow and supply and distribution, or, selling shovels to gold diggers, where they're working on, products that growers could use to boost yields or more effectively manage, et cetera. All the way through to, apps that allow people to find out which strain they want given what conditions they have, if it's medical or, whether they're looking for, a strain to party with or a strain to just chill out at home. I think that that whole industry is really an exciting innovative, sector of the economy right now. And it'd be really interesting to see what happens in the next, 5-10 years with that, especially if we can get the feds to continue, backing off from where they're at.
Yeah, I'm not really sure if that's going to happen. Jeff Sessions supposedly is an anti-drug guy, but
Yeah.
the thing with Jeff Sessions, he did say was, look, if you don't want me to enforce the laws, then change the laws. And I think that's, he's doing his job, right? So
Right.
I don't know. I guess it depends on how much steam we can pick up. I have been searching not frantically, but I've been searching pretty earnestly online for the talk that Snoop Dogg gave at South by Southwest, which was about criminal justice reform. And I'm assuming, about the drug war and the prison industrial complex and things like that. So it was cool to hear artists speaking out about it. And obviously I have quite a lot of activism with my new album that just came out a couple weeks ago. I'm looking to raise awareness about Ross Ulbricht and the way that we're doing that is not only through the Silk Road song, but also because he drew my album cover. It was originally just a birthday present for me of a Judd Weiss picture. And that's how we kind of made it the album cover. I decided that would be a great way to bring it up in an organic way. And now we've got a whole bunch of different artists that are reaching out that want to be part of the Art for Ross project, which I actually think sort of started at PorcFest as just a random funny idea. I had a bunch of people hang out at a table. We gave them candy because that keeps people interested. And everybody just started out making pictures for Ross. There wasn't some sort of bar of how good your artwork had to be, but now we're seeing a lot more interest from actual professional artists, from music to physical art, trying to contribute their work. We've even got some photographers and stuff. So hopefully this year we'll get to do another version of that.
Yeah, love it. I think that's a fantastic idea. And that's exactly the kind of thing that I love seeing coming out of an event like that, where people kind of come together and they come up with a really creative way to communicate and educate about what our ideas are and how to go about doing our activism.
Mm-hmm. So let's back it up a little bit so people have a little bit of framework for how your background goes. I know that you went to Princeton and majored in politics, and then you interned at the Cato Institute, finally joining at DoubleClick. Seems like you've got a lot of different things. Maybe you want to give people a little bit of background
Sure.
about how you came to Liberty and your
Sure.
path here.
Well, speaking of marijuana, actually the first that I know of kind of spark happened for me in high school, where we had to give a public speaking exercise, and one of my classmates spoke about hemp regulation, not even the drug side of it, just the industrial side of it. And that was the first time that I was aware of where I was like, hey, yeah, wait a minute, why do we do that? That doesn't make any sense. That's dumb. So then by the time I got to college, I started thinking a lot more about politics. And then when I ended up at Cato, between my junior and senior year, one of my fellow interns was a gentleman named Jason Sorens. He was at Yale at the time, and he would later go on to publish an article in 2001 about saying, hey, instead of losing everywhere all the time, maybe libertarians ought to try and focus their efforts in one geographic area. That idea, of course, grew to become the Free State Project. At the time that the Free State Project, and I was a signer from back then, but in 2003 when we chose New Hampshire, I was just starting another company in New York City called Right Media to also do internet advertising. So I was like, okay, I can't deal with that right now. That went on to be fairly successful, and then I left New York City in 2007, traveled around a lot. Took some fun, interesting classes, learned how to shoot, which I didn't grow up around guns. Of course, that's an important part of our libertarian heritage, is to be able to not just have a gun, but to be able to responsibly carry it and use it if the need arises. And then in early 2013, I found myself at Liberty Forum, which is the Free State Project's annual winter event. I found myself there in early 2013, not really knowing what to expect, and found it to be quite a few people, a lot of energy, a lot of buzz and excitement and momentum. And I realized that I had to, at some point, sooner or later, fulfill my pledge to move to New Hampshire. So by September of 2013, I'd moved to New Hampshire. And
Are you cold all the time?
No, well, what's funny is I grew up in Phoenix, so everybody was like, I can't move, it's too cold. I'm like, look, you wear long underwear, you get into your car, which is in your insulated garage, you turn on your seat heaters, you drive wherever you're going. It's really not that big of a deal. It's like, we have clothes, like, it's... And then in the spring and the summer and the fall, it's really quite beautiful and pleasant. Although I will note that yesterday or the day before, it was 87 degrees in New Hampshire. So, I don't know, maybe with global warming, it will end up being a very temperate place. I don't know.
We'll see about that one. Yeah, I was in Boston and it was pretty warm. I was shocked to see how hot it actually got.
Yeah.
Cool. So what are your plans now that you're the president of the Free State Project? Do you think that you're kind of taking things in a different direction? What has the progress been with the initiative?
So I joined the board of the Free State Project about a year after I moved, and Carla Garrick was the president for several years, I think 5 or 6 years, and she sort of wanted to get the FSP to cross the finish line for the first phase, which was to get 20,000 signers, people who pledged to move within 5 years. And she did that, and I kind of stepped up and said, hey, if you're really wanting to roll off of that, I'd be happy to step up and help us get through phase 2, which is, to get all those people to actually move. And that was just over a year ago that we did that. So we're now at the stage where we've got close to 2,100 people who've moved already. We actually have more than that. We've got 2,700 people who already lived in New Hampshire, who signed the same, statement of intent to help work towards the creation of a society in which the maximum role of government is the protection of individuals' rights to life, liberty, and property. So we're working on that. We're going now in contact, reaching out to all of the remaining 18,000 people who've signed up. It's actually, people have continued to sign up, of course, and letting them know that the move is on, and what do they need in order to make that happen. And we're instituting some, increased programs to help people who are moving to figure out what they're going to do when they get here, get a job, pick a place to live. There's no specific town or area in New Hampshire. It's kind of anywhere in New Hampshire that you want to move. Connect them to different kinds of activism based on what their interests or skills are. And knew that this will be announced at PorcFest, but we're going to be doing some leadership training for people who want to raise their activism to another level. So that's a bunch of things that we're doing to support the people that are moving. Of course, on the job front, it's really nice because New Hampshire is the lowest unemployment rate in the country right now. So if you have kind of any skill at all doing anything, it shouldn't be that hard for you to find a job. We've got some 3,000 open tech jobs right now. So all you techies that are sitting out there wondering if you should move or not, please move. There's plenty of companies that are hiring for that. But yeah, that's phase 2, is to get close out the 20,000 actual movers, and then I don't know, we'll see what happens after that.
So do you think that the Free State Project has been the most successful of these kinds of things in the United States? And were there other regions that took up this this approach before you guys and after? How has that progressed? And do you guys sort of share tips? Is there stuff that works in New Hampshire that other people can adopt if they think that kind of idea is good, but for example, they don't want to be in New Hampshire, maybe they want to be somewhere in the South or something?
So, I mean, the whole point of the Free State Project isn't just to save New Hampshire. It's to save the whole world. So we're hoping to, run the experiment of what happens if we put these ideals into actual practice. How do they work? Hopefully they do what we all think they're going to do, which is to work really well and, really increase, prosperity and peace in New Hampshire. And then everyone else can sort of point to our example and say, look what they're doing there. We can do the same thing here. So all those people who don't want to move for whatever, various reasons they have, including that it's too cold, they can, wait and see how we do, and then, learn from our successes and from, I'm sure that, we'll make mistakes along the way as well.
What's been, oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, so there are several other, initiatives around the country and around the world that are trying to kind of do various different experiments in that. There's the seasteaders that are trying to do it. Well, now they've sounds like they've got at least a new home down in Tahiti that's really exciting. I'm trying to decide if I can actually make it down there. They've got a big event in May. I don't know if you're going to that.
No, but it sounds awesome. I wish I was.
I know, right? It's a little far away.
Give me a call.
Well, I was just hanging out with Randy Hankin and Joe Quirk just for a hot second down in San Francisco last week at the Freedom Road Show. Then there's Liberland with Vit Jedlicka over in Europe. That seems very exciting. I was just down at Anarchapulco down in February. That's a little bit smaller of a movement down there, but so there's all these different. There's the ZEDIS down in Honduras, the Special Economic Zone. So there's all these different sort of takes or spins on this idea of trying to find a place where we can reduce the burden of regulation and taxes, and try and have the experiment to see whether we can do better without this sort of leaden hand of government trying to get in the way. And we do, I certainly talk to a lot of those guys semi regularly, and try to figure out what our best practices are. But as far as just sheer scale goes, obviously we're doing we're probably the most successful political migration period right now in the world, barring a bunch of refugee, sort of forced relocation things that are happening in places like the Middle East. So I'm really excited about our prospects. I know that we have a long way to go, but I also know that we've already had quite a few minor victories, and those are starting to pick up pace. And well before the 20,000 movers, I suspect that we will have we'll hit a tipping point, both in terms of our the rate at which people are realizing that they need to come home to New Hampshire, and also the rate at which we are, seeing victories both in system and out of system.
Interesting. So I have so many more questions. How do you, and I'm not even sure that you can answer this one, but, I was involved with Gold Skulch, and I have some experiences in the liberty movement, especially with people trying to have a mass immigration of similarly minded people, where I think people take advantage of the trust that you naturally have with somebody who's supposedly ideologically aligned. How do you mitigate that sort of thing? Do you have any advice for people, and how do you route out bad actors within your own community? Obviously, there's always bad actors everywhere, but do you know, is there something that you guys are able to do?
That's a really great question, and that's really something that I've been thinking a lot about in the last year since I've sort of taken up the reins. And I think it's a problem that every community has. It doesn't matter whether you're Liberty or not. I think the sort of more endemic problem for us is that we all have a pretty strong shared philosophical vision about personal rights and property rights, and so there is sort of an implicit assumption that people will respect those and that they understand those without needing to have anyone really explain it to you. But of course, theory and practice are the same. In practice, not always. So there's definitely, that's a challenge for any community, and it is for ours as well. And I'm part of a bunch of other different communities that are not, explicitly libertarian. Like I go to Burning Man and I volunteer there as a Black Rock Ranger, which is the sort of community mediators and peacekeepers, and some other communities as well. And everyone's got this problem. And the only thing you can really do is to just really communicate about it, to encourage everyone to be aware of it, to not be afraid, to be the one that steps forward first, to say, hey, I observed this thing happening, and to encourage everybody else that when that happens, to take it seriously, to really try to get to the bottom of what's going on, and do so in a way that tries to respect everybody's experience and opinion, and to not get, I think the danger for us is that we immediately run to the nitty gritty philosophical details about, well, like take the whole United thing, right? It's like, that would happen with the doctor this last week. It's like, well, was he on the plane? Whose contractual obligation, blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, let's just start with the fact that you watch that and something's wrong. It's just,
Yeah.
that somewhere the system has broken down. And there is a, it's important to sort of, do the post-mortem and discuss, the whys and wherefores and how we can do it better next time. But it's also important to just connect with the person who seems to be the victim and say, hey, are you okay? Just on a human level. Like, before we go, trying to point fingers and do all of that, let's just try to make sure that somebody who is asking for help is getting consideration, is getting help. So as a community, of people, yeah, we have that problem. And as we grow, in size, the number of activists that are in the Free State Project that are actually in New Hampshire, it's just going to get harder and harder to do that. But that's something that I personally am trying to do a better job of, is say, hey, let's try to remember that we're all humans and we're all flawed and we all make mistakes. And that doesn't mean that we should just roll over and turn the other cheek necessarily, but it means that we have to have some compassion. And I would like to gather people around me, certainly, who also have that level of compassion to say, I understand that you understand the principles, and I understand that you, in this case, failed to live up to those. Well, that's okay. Let's, can we do a better job next time? Is there some help that we can give you? Or is this going to be something that's going to be an endemic problem and we need to, really disassociate ourselves?
Yeah, I find that there isn't really much of an incentive for people to come forward, because everybody will say, oh, well, they didn't do it to me. And they sort of look for other excuses to not do what I think shunning should be back in style. If people are not living up to a certain moral code that they pretend to have, while I understand people make mistakes, if those mistakes happen repetitively and that person is sort of coming out as a scammer, I mean, I don't want to drop names, but there are certain people that over and over and over again, people give them the benefit of the doubt, and you Google their name and scam comes up. I wrote a song about it called Call You Out off of my new record. And, I think of it as a bit of a rallying cry to get other people to come with it. But at the same time, as a victim of some of this kind of sociopathic behavior and unethical behavior, I fear that it becomes more of a further victimization of the person when they try and come out, and then everybody just makes up excuses for the bad person because they're a celebritarian and they're a really good speaker. Just because you're a really good speaker doesn't make you a good person. And obviously several things comprise what a good person is, but I think that some things qualify you as definitely not a good person and you need to go.
I think this cuts to the heart not only of our activism and our community, but also of our philosophy. And in conversations that I have with people, especially either non-libertarians or baby libertarians, they're like, well, how would we do this in a totally private society? And it always comes back to me. It always comes down to reputation management. That is how you deal with just a whole host of issues around how do we organize ourselves as a society. And, we have the technology now to be able to do this in a better way than we've ever been able to do it, since the time of, tens of thousands of years ago when we were in, Dunbar's number, 150 member groups of hunter-gatherers where you actually could know everybody and all of their history and all of their family and friend connections, et cetera. Well, we can't do that anymore. We're just too many of us. And I really hope that, and I know there are some people working on this, but I hope that all of those brilliant minds that are working on, in the cryptocurrency space and in the, cannabis technology space, et cetera, that they are working on and thinking about technology tools that we can use to better manage reputation, within our smaller communities and also sort of at large in the world, so that we as individuals can make better and more informed choices about who we want to associate and do business with and who we don't. And that could help solve that first mover disadvantage problem that you're talking about, where the first person that comes out and says, hey, this person, I'm a victim and this person is an aggressor, that it can better manage that protocol and that process, so that we can say, all right, well, let's look at this situation, and after determining some of the facts of the case and talking about what's right and what's wrong, we can sort of assign some scores or some points or whatever to each person in this situation, so that we know next time there's some history there. So we can say the next time somebody else accuses the same person, or start to become a pattern. The next time this person accuses somebody else who we thought was a good actor, then we can start to build up that reverse reputation of this person is making false accusations, or however you want to do that. We already have lots of organizations that are doing this today to one level of success or another, right? You look at Yelp, you look at Uber or Lyft or any of the other ride sharing agreements. Airbnb is doing this.
eBay.
Sure, eBay's the granddaddy of them all. And some of them sort of work better than others. And I would love to see there be a lot more subtlety and nuance and granularity around it, because it might be that I wouldn't ever want to do business with this person, but I'd be happy to go out, and have a drink with them because they're hilarious. Or maybe their business transgressions are so severe that as much as I find them fun to hang around with in person, I don't even want to be associated with them, at all.
Yeah, you can see, sorry. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Sorry for being late. I had internet issues. But I think it's in a free society, it's the most important thing is reputation. But there's also this philosophical concept of the right to be forgotten, which is also it delves into something else. But I think for markets and in true freedom, you need reputation. And if you can see really great examples of that, especially what the Silk Road pioneered is in markets that are traditionally very dangerous, like the drug trade. You didn't have any sort of arbitration on conflict. So markets like these developed these ways of building your own reputation up, and it costs a lot if you lose that reputation, because you have to then start selling product a lot more cheaper or whatever. And it's such a massive important part of a true free society is reputation.
There's a friend of mine's actually working on a really interesting venture, and I don't want to go too much into it, but there's even, I think, more sophisticated things that you can do with reputation. So imagine an example where you are widely considered to be a thought leader, and you're very popular, and a lot of people follow you, and they want to hear what you have to say. But you want to say something that's a little controversial, and maybe isn't totally ready for prime time yet. Maybe you're not even sure if that's really you're not really sure what you believe about it, but you want to start to wade into a certain issue. What if you could kind of section off some of your reputation score to a pseudonym, and you could begin publishing under that pseudonym and join the conversation that way, so that people know that whoever's behind that is a good and respected actor, but wants to talk about things a little bit sort of off the record. And then you can, depending on what happens in that conversation, you can either shut it down, or you can bring it back in to you can reveal your identity.
Absolutely. Actually, I've got a good example of that. Eric Voorhees did that really with Shapeshift. Before he launched Shapeshift, because altcoins were very frowned upon in the Bitcoin space in the early days. And, Eric, in his wisdom, saw the massive opportunity that was there, but built it under a pseudonym, and then came out afterwards saying, hey, it's mine. And it was very similar, right? You sort of
right.
stem up. And I think what's really important about, and this goes back to some of the cypherpunk writings, where you actually don't, because currently the system of ID is that my flesh and body is the ID. And that's really dangerous, because if that gets stolen, that identity, I can't go further back. I can't delete myself. Whereas if you have a pseudonym where you build reputation onto that, and you don't want to lose that, but if it gets stolen, you can turn it off by publicly announcing that's gone and starting a new one. And
Right.
yeah, it gives rise to, and it might be good for that whole right to be forgotten thing, but also if you've made a mistake and need to restart, we're all human as well. But on the other side, you get if you get serial scammers, there's got to be a way to stop them. So it's an interesting conversation.
Right.
Great. So we're not going to solve everything, but I'm encouraged with some of these ideas. So that remains to be seen. Why don't we jump forward to PorcFest and tell us a little bit about what's going on with PorcFest this year?
Sure. So the Porcupine Freedom Festival, affectionately known as PorcFest, PORC, we also
Some
have
people
lots.
think it's dirty. They're like, what goes on there? I want to go. I'm like, oh,
Mostly
no.
people think it's bacon. In fact, we actually had a couple show up. They actually came
Oh
down
my
all the
God,
way from
heck yeah.
Canada. They were like, where's the, we came here to eat meat. And we're like, well, and I think they ended up staying and having a lovely time, but they were
You're
expecting.
free to eat meat.
Yeah.
You get
Well, and we certainly have, there's even we do a pig roast on the Saturday that's sponsored by Bardo Farm, which is a group of activists that live in New Hampshire, and they have a farm, and they also make guns, of course. So we do have pig products, but mostly it's about the porcupine, which is our mascot. So PorcFest, it's going to be this year, June 21 through 24, and this will be the 14th annual PorcFest. We've been holding it every year since New Hampshire was chosen, at Rogers Campground, which is in lovely Lancaster, New Hampshire, just north of the Notches of the White Mountains. And we will see probably about 1,500 people, more of whom are actually from out of state. So it's a lot of people who haven't moved yet that are coming to experience the community of the Free State Project for the first time, or for the 6th, 7th, 10th time. It's a good way to come and check it out and see what you're getting into. A lot of people, there's some people that just never leave. They're like, well, what is this Free State Project? We'll go check it out. They come to PorcFest. They call their wife and say, put the house on the market. I'm not even coming home. So there's certainly that aspect. A lot of talks, a lot of activities. We've got a lot of regulars like you, like Jeff Tucker. Will Coley will be coming back and talking about a lot of different things that he's done in the last year, of course, running for office, but also the whole situation with Muslim sentiment in this country has gotten quite topical. Dale Brown from Threat Management Center in Detroit is going to be coming and not only talking about what he's doing in Detroit, but also holding some self-defense classes for people, for women, for teens. We just announced that Connor Boyack, who is the executive director of the Libertas Institute in Utah, and also the author of the Tuttle Twins series of libertarian children's books, is going to be coming and doing a children's book reading, and then also talking about his activism, his political activism in Utah. We were going to have, this hasn't even actually been announced yet, but John McAfee was supposed to be headlining, and unfortunately he just notified us that he's not going to be able to make it this year due to another commitment that just came up. Which is sad, I think, for both he and us, because I think we're really his tribe. He doesn't even know it yet. But hopefully we'll be coming back next year, working on, I don't know if I can announce it yet, but a couple of other people that are going to be coming in to fill his spot, both as far as Bitcoin and also political activism is concerned. A bunch of other speakers. Schedule should be up shortly. You can find out more by going to porcfest.com and get your tickets, which are $80. Runs Wednesday through Sunday morning. And it's really a great way to see what we're all about at the Free State Project.
Excellent. Yeah, I have a really good time every year that I go. So I hope that people decide to come out. I mean, they always do. So that's good. Josh, are you going to make it to America ever again or no?
I've wanted to come to PorcFest for 10 years. Like I was in Sydney before I knew any of you guys, even before Bitcoin. Yeah. But yeah, I'm not sure about this year. This, with Vaultoro, it's just mad at the moment, in the middle of raising, so I can't really think ahead of next week. I'm just, yeah.
Listen, he's just concerned. So I told Josh that I'm inviting all of my hot girlfriends to his house this summer. I'm calling it the Hot Girl Hotel. So I think he's just trying to prepare for the onslaught of gorgeous libertarian women that I'm going to be bringing to his home.
Bring it on.
Matt's like, what happened? He's like,
as long as you're also inviting them to PorcFest, then great.
Exactly. Well, a lot of my gorgeous friends are already coming to PorcFest, but yes,
true.
I think that's implied. I love how many. Well, I'm happy with how many gorgeous women are in the liberty movement. When I came here only 4 or 5 years ago.
You were the only gorgeous woman.
Oh, you're too sweet. No, there were still pretty girls, but now, I mean, it's getting like, there's some hotness going on. I like it. I think, we got to outbreed the status. So making progress.
I get this question a lot, especially it seems like lately is like, oh, well, what's your male female ratio? They always ask sort of suspiciously and skeptically. And
they should be suspicious.
With not without good cause, but what we see in New Hampshire, of course, is that for every guy, that shows up, there's he's bringing along a significant other who maybe isn't super into the whole liberty movement, but tag along anyway. So we end up with a really a pretty even and balanced mix. And then of course, now that we've been doing this for 15 years, there's plenty of kids who either tagged along or are now New Hampshire natives, and they're coming up through the ranks.
Yeah, it's really fun. There's a family element to it. Obviously, some of the stuff isn't as family friendly, but it's good that people don't have to feel like if they have children that they're not going to have anything to do. There seems to be a pretty healthy and happy bunch of little rabble-rousing kids running around. So,
well, out of 1,500 people that we had last year, 200 were kids, and we have all day long, all week long activities and things for the kids to do. So. If you're not sure, definitely bring along the family and they'll have a blast.
Perfect. Well, I think we're going to wrap the show for today. Unless, Matt, is there anything else that you wanted to touch on before we bid you a fond farewell?
Just one last thing. If you can't make it to PorcFest, if any of your listeners aren't available, then we have meetups every other day, it seems like, somewhere in the state. So if you ever find yourself up in that area, please don't hesitate to give us a shout either on Facebook or off of our website, and we'll set you up with a group of activists that can show you around. So, but otherwise, Noah, thanks for the opportunity to share with everybody, and forward to doing it again.
Excellent. Thanks so much for coming on. And Josh, me and you, why don't we chat for a few minutes? Matt, thank you. So Josh, I didn't tell you, we went to the marijuana conference this weekend. I'll have to tell you later because the audience probably doesn't need to hear about it a second time. But I wanted to say thanks to the friends and sponsors of the show. The BitcoinCPA.com tax season is thankfully almost behind us. But if you're slow, go and talk to Kirk. He can file an extension, and he's been setting me up with this Invisibiz thing where he is making me go paperless, and he's going to make me less of a disorganized mess. So I'm very excited to see how that streamlining goes and sharing it with everyone.
Invisibizine's general problem.
I don't know what that is. I think that was a really bad joke.
That was a very nerdy joke. Only some Bitcoiners will really understand.
Man, I need to step up my game. CryptoCompare.com, a supporter of the show. Josh, you guys have a ticker on there, right?
Yeah. It's a great service. You can check. They use our API, the Vaultoro.com API, to compare all the prices to gold. And if you want to trade gold and crypto, come to Vaultoro.com.
Awesome. And we've got, some other friends of the show. I'll just run down the list. freeross.org. Obviously, if people want to get anything on Amazon, they've got a little Amazon link there, and you can automatically donate if you're poor. Third Key Solutions. Pamela Morgan is a great friend to the show and to me. Great work over there. Sovereign Tech and Sex and Science Hour, 2 awesome podcasts that I support. And also NetKey is a great friend to the show. Don Newton has taken a little bit of almost like a mentorship with me, and I really wanted to give props to her company because I think they're great, and
we should have
show my appreciation.
And Pamela, we need both of them on.
We haven't had them. Richard, who's helping us with the show today. Richard, if you could reach out to Dawn at netkey.com, and then Pamela Morgan, you should have her information. We should have them on the show soon. And if you people can go to cryptomediahub.com if they need PR marketing. And of course, the most important thing that everyone should do right now is, come on, tell me if you can guess.
Magic word.
No, we're not doing magic word. God damn it.
Buy your album, of course.
Thank you. Finally, a little respect around here.
Buy some Tatiana coin. I'm very excited to see how that project goes. It's so cool.
Well, I went and I talked about it at Berkeley. And I went over to IDEO as well. And I think they're going to have me back at the schools. So that seems, I don't know, everybody seems to like it.
It's so revolutionary. It's really, really cool. And, coming from an artistic family who's made up of a lot of musicians, I can only sympathize with a lot of the problems that it's solving. So it's really, really cool.
Yeah. Well, yep. And then people can find out more about that at my website, TatianaMoroz.com. And there was something else I wanted to tell you, but I don't remember what. Oh, yeah, I'm going to do that Heroes thing next week. Remember, we had Megan Himmel last week on the show, so I'm going to do a kind of a women's panel about music industry stuff, but also instead of, I do think that there are some real legitimate issues for women to feel a certain level of confidence. There's a certain level of, discrimination, but I also think that focusing on stories of empowerment is better. And I think that that's the focus of this conference too. So I look forward to getting inspired. People can check out my website for other upcoming events. I know I've got an event in May 1st, and I don't know, just booking out all over the place. So thanks everyone for listening to the show. Can't wait for next week. We've got Bridge 21, which is going to be, I'm not sure who's coming on from Bridge 21, if it's going to be Will Madden or if it's going to be Elizabeth Plauché. Both people are cool.
It's a lucky dip.
And then there's another guest next week, but I don't remember who it is. I'm going to look it up right now. And then this way people can wonder what's going to happen. Oh, Sally O is going to come on, and she's going to talk about that. There's this Amish guy who they want to give him 40 years for selling like an all natural salve. So that seems perfectly reasonable. Great job, government.
Well, it's 40 years of free labor for the government. So,
Yes, slavery is alive and well in the United States of America. But we're looking to change that here with the Tatiana Show. Artist Coins, Bitcoin, Voltoro, taking back the power from the man.
Taking it back.
Oh, totally random plug for something that I don't really know why I'm bringing it up, except for the fact that I think it's cool. There's an article about Amir Taki in Wired right now that my beautiful friend Jessica, who has a really cool movie called, I think, No Control. It's a movie about the gun control and stuff like that. But she told me about it, and Amir Taki is in Wired, and it talks about what happened to him when he went to the Middle East. Have you read this article yet?
I haven't read the article, but I listened to a great podcast of him on the Crypto Show, and it was really good.
Oh, really? Wow. Why don't we have him on our show? When did he go on the Crypto Show?
A week and a half ago or a week ago.
Man, the Crypto Show is on their game. They're scooping up all these great guests, but luckily they're awesome. I love those guys. They're so cool. Yeah. So hopefully we'll reach out to Amir Taki, because I would like to speak with him more. Controversial figure, but I find him to be very inspiring. I'm a huge fan. Why is he on Facebook? I find that hard to believe. I'm just searching around.
It seems like he's grown up a lot.
Oh no, this is the real Amir.
I've known him. I mean, I haven't really known him. I've just known of him online and followed him, his development, and he's an interesting character. That's for sure.
Oh, absolutely. And, next week I'm actually going to go to Los Angeles with Lynn Ulbricht and Judd Weiss, who I adore. is having a photography workshop, which I wish I was able to spend time doing that, but it's over 2 days. But he's also having a party, and Lynn is going to speak a little bit, and I'm going to sing some songs from the new
World
record.
famous parties, apparently.
They are, and plus I just love hanging out with Judd and Ovens and that whole
he's a
LA
cool guy.
crew.
Yeah, we hung out together in Las Vegas.
Yes,
That was really
everybody
fun.
loves hanging with Judd. And the benefit, aside from his charm, is getting gorgeous pictures of ourselves that make us look as cool as we truly are on the inside. So anyway, thanks everyone. Nice to see you, Joshua, my darling. Let's chat off of offline. And thanks to everyone for listening. You can tune in next week and get more of the latest news on how to save the world with Tatiana and Josh. Maybe
And
that should be our-
subscribe and like.
Oh yeah, subscribe and like. That's what we're supposed to be talking about. We're supposed to be encouraging this kind of behavior. All
Actually,
right,
I
love
want
you,
to
everybody.
thank all our subscribers.
Oh, see, there you
There's
go. All
so
7 of
many.
them? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
There's not just
No, there's a lot, thousands now.
You know what? People tell me all the time that they listen to this show, so it's very encouraging.
Yeah, me
Yeah,
too.
and also people can sponsor the show if they want to reach out. So
Yeah, we got a lot of listeners.
freedom ain't free, suckers. No, I'm just kidding. All right, thanks everyone. I love you. Bye. See you
Ciao.
later. Peace out.